I call to order the committee of the whole board meeting at 6:30 p.m. On Thursday, September 7th, 2023, in the boardroom of Oak Park. Space blast for roll call, please.
Mr. Brisbane.
Here.
Dr. Monroch. Here. Mr. Arkin.
Here.
Mr. Usually. Here. Dr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Brian Ross.
Here.
Mr. Boxey.
Here. I move to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel of the district and independent contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employer or against legal counsel of the district to determine its validity. However, meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the local government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. And collective negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Second. And a roll call, please.
Dr. Monroch. Yes. Mr. Arkin.
Yes.
Ms. Williams. Yes. Mr. Brisbane.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Ross.
Yes.
Dr. Livingston.
Yes.
Mr. Boxey.
Yes. Okay. We are reconvening open session and for our committee of the whole meeting. And our first order of business is public comment.
None.
Our second order of business is approval of minutes. So I move to approve the August 10, 2023 committee of the whole meetings as presented. Are there any corrections, adjustments that need to be made? So may I please have a second? And we will do a voice vote. So what?
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Our next segment is instruction, and I will turn it over to you, Dr. Johnson.
Okay, Dr. Fiorenza and her team are here to present the freshman curriculum year 1 evaluation, and I will turn it over to her as soon as to introduce her team and go into their report.
Good evening. Tonight, the three of us are here to share with you the year 1 evaluation of our restructured freshman curriculum. I am joined by Kristen McKee, who is our coordinator of learning analytics. Lincoln Chandler, who is our consultant. I'd like to say anything. As you may recall, in the 21-22 school year, Oak Park and River Forest High School committed to restructuring the freshman curriculum to allow all students the ability to explore and develop their interests without tracks, to ensure that we provide access to all our students to a high-level rigorous curriculum, and finally to address the adverse underlying beliefs that were hindering access to that high-level rigorous curriculum for our students, particularly those. Tonight, as we share the evaluation process that included an evaluation of the investment, scope of the evaluation, outcomes, and then next steps. I think it's important that we remind ourselves that any change, especially significant change, takes time. Any small increases or decreases that we are seeing now aren't being used to make judgments about the success or failure of the freshman restructured curriculum. But instead, we're using this information to help us make decisions about instructional strategies, the curriculum, and professional development needed by our staff. So just very briefly, to help us gain an understanding of the investment that was taken on by the members of this district. The curriculum writing teams invested a significant amount of time in curriculum writing, reviewing and aligning the courses to rigorous standards and learning intentions. There was and continues to be significant investment in the professional development of our staff and the administration, particularly around the area of differentiation. The administration held weekly meetings to ensure that communication was had by all and everyone understood what was happening and what needed to happen. These weekly meetings reviewed the key performance indicator data. Significant resources were used to provide additional curriculum writing time above and beyond what we had initially indicated we were going to use for curriculum teams that indicated an additional need. And then we invested in the after-school tutoring program, taking that to 7 o'clock at night, Monday through Thursday. So that's very significant investment in both allocations.
As a part of the evaluation approach, we took our key performance indicators and turn them into relevant questions to answer. These questions guided our evaluation process. We have reviewed our implementation practices and analyzed and interpreted the outcome data. As you can see in our report, in our evaluation, implementation practices include student experience, teacher experience, classroom composition. Student outcomes include grades, achievement metrics, and enrollment patterns.
And so when it comes to the outcomes, there are basically three categories. The first is a classroom composition. And as I said, one of the purposes was to make sure we could expose all children to an opportunity to pursue a quality education through tracks. And we saw off top that the course diversity that we saw was more aligned with campus diversity. So in the classrooms, we are seeing classrooms that look more like an overall competition, which is one of the goals. And then we conducted observations of the freshman cohort and their outcomes at the cohort level and at the student level. So what I mean by that is at the cohort level, what we want to understand is how did the freshmen in this YOG 26, which is the year of graduation 26, so how did the freshmen in this cohort compare to freshman outcomes that we've observed in other outcomes, other cohorts pre-restructuring? So we went back and up to 4 or 5 years back of the prior way of doing things to see what that comparison looked like. And because there is variation in any cohort, you get sort of a range of performance that you see. And what we saw is that for year 26 students, the performance fell pretty much within that range in most cases. And so we looked at things such as 5 essentials. We looked at the average PSAT score for the cohort. We also looked at the performance bands. So what percentage of our students were above standards, meeting standards, or below. And one area in particular, sophomore level honors enrollment, we actually saw highs across the board in the percentage of students that were opting into classes. So this is, going on from their freshman year, making a decision to choose more rigorous coursework, and we saw those increases across the board. At the student level, that's actually asking the question of how do students within the cohort fare? And for that, we looked at 3 main things. We looked at honors credit accrual, so who was achieving honors level credits. We're also looking at actual classroom grades, particularly in the English class. And we also looked at the percentile of the PSAT. Where did they perform the PSAT relative to peers? And there we saw increases in the percentage of students earning honors level credits. So what that means is that at the freshman year, we saw a larger percentage of our students in this cohort getting at least 1 honors credit. And we actually saw an increase also in the number of students getting the maximum number of credits in that freshman year compared to the year before. When we looked at the English grades, we saw a greater percentage of students passing English overall. And when we look at the grade distribution, we saw a grade distribution that was roughly similar to the combined grade distributions we saw in the prior English classes. And in terms of PSAT performance, we also again saw very similar performance. So overall, the takeaway is that as we continue to look forward, we can continue to look at things such as classroom composition, how we're doing relative to cohorts, and also how we're doing within the cohort at the student level. But as of this year, basically the results we saw were all consistent with this idea that our students are performing as well or better in some cases as we've seen in the past.
So as we continue to look forward, we're going to continue to monitor the curriculum. We're going to continue to provide the professional learning experiences that our teachers request and need. We are going to examine some supplemental academic support that we do think might be necessary for some of our students. And we are going to examine the idea of academic preps with both our students and our teachers to get a little bit more information about that and their perspective. And then finally, we do plan to partner with a research organization to do an external program evaluation and cohort monitoring. Any questions?
I guess I have a question about number 5, which is just what I was reading through before. I wondered whether, question about number 5, partnering with the research organization to provide external program evaluation, cohort monitoring. That seems like a useful thing. It seems like it will cost some money, and I'm wondering whether you feel that now is the correct time to initiate that process since we are so early in this freshman tracking. I guess I'm a little surprised that we'd be starting it so soon, but I'm just wondering the reasons.
So I don't know that that means we're going to start right now with that partnership, but we are vetting and talking to some organizations to first find out what can be offered to us, what we would get from that, how much would it cost. And just in the initial conversation, it has been suggested that end of year 2, end of year 4 are probably the best times to do evaluation such as I'm describing it in next slide.
Other questions? Okay.
Yeah, just making. First of all, thank you very much. I think I've been pretty vocal on the information that I felt that was in the short term needed. And it sounds like that you're going to be able to take this information and use it to fine tune your programming,
Yes.
which is exactly what I was hoping would happen. So thank you. And so, you know, though it sounds like you're measuring things that I've been very concerned about, at least in the short term, which is achievement, diversity in the classroom, and honors enrollment past the freshman year.
Correct.
And it sounds like that we're either on par or increasing. I see some increase in those
Yes.
areas. Okay, great. I just, you know, the one thing I would suggest and hope is continued expansion of the use of the Student Resource Center and library to maybe early hours and maybe from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock if possible. I know it takes some investment. But making sure we know that, you know, 77% of our kids are involved in activities, most of those activities are after school. And then, you know, by those expanded hours really give them the opportunity to take advantage of that type of support. But thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Lori, I want to echo Fred's comments. Thank you for all of this data, for putting this report together. I appreciate it. I guess most of my questions are kind of wrapped up in what comes next. Are you going to be making additional recommendations for changes, revisions, tweaks to this initiative in the next few weeks or a couple of months that will be implemented this school year? Can we expect to see tangible things coming from you or from the administration that we can act on and implement soon? Or is this, or are we sort of in a wait and see mode?
So I think specifically related to the curriculum, teachers are making adjustments. And in fact, we're making adjustments last year. They percolated through the year and saw things, they were responsive, that needs to happen, that responsiveness in the moment to what students are learning. However, the things that we might need to talk about is tutoring, is maybe supplemental supports, right? We determined we're missing some academic support that could be provided, and then better support our students. We would definitely need to bring that to the board. I don't know that yet. We need to investigate.
And so if we already identified some of those, or any single additional academic support that we could be providing, because if we have, I would really like for us to act. I don't want us to wait until the end of the school year or after the school year. If there are things that you and your team already know would be helpful, let's act on it.
Absolutely. Right now, what we know is that the data that we just finished analyzing gave us a pause. So we had a few questions. So before we just launch out and say, this is what we want to do, we really want to better understand maybe a little bit more where that problem is stemming from, so that we don't create a solution that's really not linked to why that data showed up that way. So I think we will, and I'm very comfortable bringing back anything that the students need or the teachers have indicated. But right now, we just want to do a little bit more inquiry to find out exactly why we saw what we saw. But we will.
Thank you, appreciate that, and that's a good segue to my next question, which is, there's no mention in the report of the role of guidance counselors. And I'm really interested to know, and I would love for the administration to do some analysis of the efficacy of our guidance counselors. We have a lot of them, they're talented and experienced, but I'm guessing that there is some variation in the outcomes for individual cohorts, for individual guidance counselors. And I think that, that might be a place where that's a touch point for the school to individual students, and it's a really crucial one. It's the last chance in course selection that we have as a school to, I think, to counteract and acknowledge inputs that our students are getting from their families, from their peers, that might be different from the inputs that we're giving them and the advice that we're giving them, and there's a rigor of their course selection. And I think that those one-on-one conversations that our counselors have with students, that's a really important moment, and it's a great opportunity that can drive the outcomes that we want. And so I would like to see us capture, ideally, counselor by counselor, are the outcomes appropriate, or is there some reinforcement, maybe opportunities there for some of our team?
Can I ask a clarifying question? When you're talking about outcomes, are you talking about how students select their courses in this case?
Right.
The enrollment patterns and how students ultimately enroll the next level, so on and so on.
So we have an average. I'm guessing that not every counselor's cohort, falls along that average. There are some that maybe don't have the same outcomes, and that's what I'm talking about. Where there may be a reinforcement potential, right?
Yes.
So one of the things we have done for the current now sophomores, the students that finished the first iteration of this restructured curriculum, is we do have the data. It was not specific to the counseling department. It was done for us to monitor what were the students recommended for by their teachers, what did they ultimately select. So we have the data. What I would like to know is what you're alluding to, why? Why, if they selected something different, higher or lower, what went into that decision? Because there are multiple reasons why a student family decision, the number of honors courses, it's a variation. So we like to better understand that. So we absolutely will be inquiring.
Those are really challenging questions, right? Because the peer influence or family influence, those can be the most compelling reasons why a student does something. And there are things that we have to acknowledge. They're real and they're valid, but it may not always be in the best interest of that student if they are trying to realize they're after that academic potential.
So we'll tease that out.
That's great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I add my thanks for all the work as well. And a question I have was to teachers. You alluded earlier to just in the curriculum development and the changes. It's a lot of work, and even beyond what had been expected in some cases. So if this goes on, I guess, are you continuing to see that load on teachers, and like how is that being addressed? It seems that with the constant checking and adjusting and modifying, that probably is adding some additional stress to their to what they're doing. And so I'm just curious how you're helping to address it.
So to be preventative, we allotted extra curriculum time over the summer for teachers to do some things if they chose to. We have started the school year with curriculum time kind of laid out for teachers. As far as the day-to-day, I imagine we're in week 3, so I haven't really gone around yet to see, where are you? Because in week 3, it's still with open house and various things that have occurred for back to school night, it still is hectic. But we will be checking in with our teachers and, helping them to navigate.
Can I jump on that?
Please.
So this is really maybe less of a question than just looking at the academic press, that set of evaluations, sort of a comment for the board, because you know, first of all, like I know you started 2021 to know that it was taken remotely during the pandemic. I almost would have just graded that. Like I don't know that data means much of anything, because it was for teachers, it was such a random year. And you know, some adapted very quickly to online and others found it extremely challenging. And so I just think that yellow bar is kind of a junk bar and should be gray instead, and like should not really be counted. And then sort of relatedly to that, you know, these at USC, I get these same sorts of questions, right? So I've been evaluated on this kind of thing in 20 years or so. And I don't know if there's a better method out there, but I don't know. I guess we put big brackets around student responses on this stuff, right? Like there's a lot of research showing that student evaluations are limited accuracy and limited utility. And so you want to ask them, you want to gather that data, but when you're analyzing it, kind of like have like a big bracket around it, right? You know, and these are not as problematic as some of the older evaluations were really terrible in terms of sexism, racism issues, and this I think doesn't fall so much into that, but just something to be aware of, and be aware that it's very unfortunate that the timing of detracking this initiative happened while we were still coming out of the pandemic, because it just means the comparisons from 2019 to 2023 are it's going to be hard to get good data for a few more years. I guess that's what I'm saying. And my sense of teachers I work with, my colleagues, is that this fall, a lot of them are starting to feel back to normal. Like this fall now. Last spring, they were so burnt out still. So and you don't have this year's study. So I feel like next year we'll be able to have a much cleaner read on the teacher piece of it. So, I love seeing the sophomore numbers go up. That's great. That's very exciting.
Just very briefly, you did a nice job of going up the year's worth of information in a 32-page PDF and starting to make good use of visualization of that data for us. And I'm assuming that we will continue to receive the quarterly report outs from the executive. Is that true?
So at this point, we're going to move to a semester report.
Thank you. Nice work.
I have a couple of questions and comments. I echo sentiments of my fellow board members on the report. Tim mentioned that what would be helpful in my mind is continuing to talk to what I call lessons learned and or adjustments. So if there's a way of memorializing that, that's what did we learn this past year that caused us to pivot even a little bit through the course of this journey, as a, really calling that out, because that's the learnings of a long journey. I agree, that we need to look at it over a long term, and, this data is just another snapshot. I do have a couple, observations and comments I wanted to address. You never get by about that, right? One is an observation, and it, going into this work, there was a lot of, that there was a voice of, this is a zero-sum game, and, that our white students would be pulled down, to be candid. And to me, the data clearly, says that that's not the case, you can interpret it as either it's continuing to go up, or, this data is within the read of it. So I think that's a message that needs to be part of this, because there's a voice there, this data to me clearly debunks that.
Yes.
Those words. There's a chart on page 22 of the report, and in it, this is, I know there's a lot of different pieces of data, but this is the one that shows that in the new honors, the percentage of Black and Hispanic students getting D's and F's is up. I mean, it's because we've changed the paradigm, right? And I understand that, but my question is there, what can we do about that in terms of either is it not the right move for that group of students, or what supports do we need to offer? So if you could talk to that, I'd appreciate it.
So I'll just say one thing, and I'm gonna spin the microphone for Kristen to speak. But that's next step number 3, examine supplemental academic supports. That's where we picked up that we might need to look at something. Right now, we're not making sweeping judgments. That's the data. So now we need to inquire about what needs to be supported. What was the struggle? We have a lot more questions than we have answers right now.
Actually, I think what Dr. Fiorenza is saying is accurate. I also think as we do this and we move past sort of the pandemic years and we have more complete data sets moving forward, I think too, the accuracy in which we can get kids into what would be and what would not be the right placements, right? Even this year already, meeting with our team that we've already met, reviewing our universal screener, and then pulling up our map data. We have 4 data points of map this time because we had complete sets of data which we didn't have because of the pandemic. I feel even more confident moving forward that we are using the data more wisely. However, saying that very easily, because this isn't a lot of students that we're talking about, it wouldn't be hard to find out who those students are and then do sort of a really light regression analysis to say where did they come from, or were they, what might have happened, what were the external factors that we were so combating last year. And how then can we use our data better and quicker. And what we do is within the first 20 days of school, we do pull a complete set of early warning indicator data, right? And so one of the things that we do within that first 20 days, so that's actually next week. I know, it's not great. Because we get our marking period 1 at the end of this week. And so we'll pull that data, which includes D's, F's, attendance, and discipline. And then we will bring them to our teams. And particularly pay attention to those students who are in that space, because now we know this a little bit better, right? And where last year this was new, and now it's not as new, we can target a little better. So I do think with having these complete data sets coming from the incoming students, as well as our practices just getting sharper and better as we move forward, especially as we really hopefully robustly implement Tableau dashboards. I think that will be just absolutely transformative for this practice, because of the, as I mentioned previously when I presented this year's time, some of this data was taking, right? The faster we can do it, the more responsive.
Thank you. And I had a clarifying question. There's a graph on page 28. That I couldn't understand in terms of whether the captions at the bottom.
Which one is?
Math benchmark for students.
Yes.
What am I? It has years. And then it has the demographics. Or am I missing colors?
Did we miss the color scheme?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it is on the front, it's on page 27. The green are, yeah, that didn't get pulled down. The green is the students who met or exceeded the college board, I'm sorry, it's really good. The college board benchmarks that tiny little yellow sliver, which is really only about 10 scale scores, so it's in between, that's approaching. And then in that red is where you see students who need to strengthen their skills. Does that help?
I'm looking at the screen right now. I'm sorry to keep it on this, but it's where it's the math benchmarks by students. Okay, so underneath that, you see the racial identifiers underneath there.
And maybe they just need. to
Underneath
color that
the
out.
years. Do you see that?
Oh,
There we go.
Yeah, where something's just, I imagine missing and,
It's a kind of basis shape.
oh, that looks like it.
We will, give the correct information, so
Yeah,
you can
that's,
read that,
thank you.
apologize.
No, not at all. But thank you again for what I consider to be a comprehensive.
actually, I think I know what happened. I think nothing got cut off and we got grabbed.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a
Inadvertently.
screenshot.
It's, yeah,
It's a screen.
I was gonna say, it actually should just have a line. It's, yeah, if you just like delete that line, if the rest of it is on to the next page,
Okay.
that's exactly what.
Let's figure it out and I lost the game.
Yeah.
We'll get a correction.
Okay.
And while we're looking at that graph,
Yes.
one quick thing. The one outlier here for the math averages is the Asian Pacific Islander group, which made a really large jump over 4 years. And I don't know, I don't know how to investigate that, and if there's a way to find out, like, you know, when there's student interviews or whatever, like, has something changed in that community and, you know, whatever else that has led to this jump. And
I think mostly it's really just a small population, so because of the low number, it's just gonna be subject to more variability.
okay, that makes sense.
I think that's what it is, it is small.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I thank you all very much. And we look forward to the next update in 6 months. January.
Whatever that is.
Thank you. All right. Okay, we now shift to our finance agenda. And Dr. Johnson, do you want to?
We have three different finance items. Our first one is our health for providing employee well-being and coaching. Dr. Sanders is coming up for this item. Before we launch it on the other two, so
Dr. Johnson, so the rationale behind bringing this contract forward is twofold. We have seen a significant increase of our mental health claims, and as you know, we are self-insured, so we pay for all claims that are submitted as part of our health insurance. Our claims constitute about 85% of all our healthcare costs. The second thing is that we have seen a lot of increases in mental health concerns, not just in our district, but across the country. In the memo, I cited some information from the research done specifically by State of the American Teacher that is done every year, and it's improved this year compared to the last 2 years, but it still says that according to its findings, teachers experience twice as likely frequent job-related stress and burnout as employees in other industries. So this leads to various problems, including absenteeism, desire to leave the profession. In our effort to help both with increases in mental health claims, and to increase well-being and retention of our employees, we look for a provider that would help us to offer coaching services to our employees without the stigma is often associated with mental health services. And so we found such provider, One Health. We conducted a pilot during the summer with our administrators. The feedback that we received was very positive. And based on that, we would like to bring forward contract with One Health for a total amount of $40,000. That includes 570 30-minute sessions. These sessions would be open to any employee in the district, and the sessions will not expire. So and it will take as long as we have to complete 570 sessions. So there is no risk associated with it. Moreover, we have it already budgeted because we budget for wellness services as part of our healthcare costs. And there was also some information provided directly from Boone and with an attachment. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My only question is, why does this need to come to the board? Given that it's part of, it's already, it's being paid for out of the budget, it isn't an additional.
It is because the hourly agreement is anything over 25.
Oh, it's over 25.
Policy,
Okay, it wasn't sure,
contract policy.
over 25. Thank you, that I was just saying. Thank you.
So this, I appreciate the test run that you made with administrators, and it looks like that test run was really successful in two ways. That every single person, I think, that you report a session who tried these services had at least one, at least a second session, which tells me that they found it valuable in the first one, found it worthwhile enough to at least have a second session. And on average, there were 5 sessions per participant. So that tells me that that this is sticky, that this was actually a really helpful service. And so I'm sort of thinking, best case scenario that there is widespread use of this by our faculty. I hope that there is, but I wouldn't want for us to come up against our limit of what we paid for, and have faculty members that are having weekly sessions get cut off in the middle. So is there a way to extend the number of sessions available to us in a seamless way so that the number of faculty get cut off?
Absolutely. If there is, if we see there is an interest and our employees are really taking advantage of it, then we could always extend it. It roughly translates to $70 per 30-minute session. And the beauty of it is also that you fill out the questionnaire, and based on the questionnaire, they send you suggestions for coaches, and then you have a pick. So, each employee receives 2 suggestions. If you don't like who they sent you, you can request somebody else. Like you can request race-based, like for instance, if you are a Black female that you would like to work with a coach with a Black female also, you can request that. And I know our employees also ask like a specific interests, like somebody who had experience leading large organizations for our leaders. So it's really tailored to meet employees where they are without that stigma that, you could see sometimes with EAPs, unfortunately. And we always refer employees when they're struggling to seek guidance. But here, this is like a first preventive step where you don't have to experience a problem to get that personalized attention from a coach.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I heard you correctly or not. You said that our mental health teams are the largest portion of our health insurance payouts.
That's
For claims, which represent, is this correct? You said 85% of our.
Oh, no, I just said all claims represent 85% of our healthcare budget.
Oh, okay. I was like, do you think that there would be a mitigation of those those mental health claims by instituting, I mean, do you see us saving money on the claim side?
I certainly hope so.
Okay.
I
I mean,
can't.
did Boone have any statistics or anything that they've,
Uh,
I'm just, I mean, it's more of a curiosity than anything.
they did say that, what they've seen with other companies, that it's like a preventative measure.
Right.
And it helps people who maybe go undiagnosed to get this first step where the intervention would be less severe as if they waited until later. And especially like for those people who are struggling, sometimes it's very difficult and a lengthy process to even get somebody who would work with them, a therapist. So here, we work with a coach, and then if they identify there are any symptoms that require more targeted medical approach, then they would refer to a specialist. So that's why we hope that if prevented in the long run, it would help us save some costs.
Right, and just to be clear, this is for any employee of the district,
Absolutely,
not just a faculty member or.
any employee.
Yeah, no, it's great to have this resource, particularly given the need. And I know there are the 570 sessions and they will go into their use of. Faith, now with the outcomes are, would there be an to reevaluate to continue, or what would be happening after you get past the initial contract?
Yeah, definitely, we would evaluate, first of all, is utilization where we want it to be. And second, they send us reports, so we will see what are the issues that our employees are coping with. And I think I said in the memo that it's the data is all aggregate, so it will be completely confidential. So we don't know if a specific employee goes and talks to a coach, we don't know what that specific employee talks about, but we would get general trends that would help us analyze what are the issues that our employees are facing and what do we need to do next. And if it's working well, like what we've seen with administrators, there was a request to continue working with a coach because it was people found it so beneficial. So we might find something similar along the lines when it's open to all employees, but we just don't know yet.
Other questions? I had two. One is a comment, which is, you've heard this from me before, don't lie. I really don't like the word significant in a report, so if there's any way, when we say we're trying to offset some significant things, you could get 7 different answers of what significant means. So if we could quantify, what it is that when you reference these healthcare costs related to mental health, it would be provided, in my mind, some context to this. And the question I have is, this dashboard that was shown, what's the timing of when we would expect that to kind of go into place?
So as soon as it's approved, we will bring this for the board for approval next board meeting, during the regular board meeting, and then we are ready to start. May provide them into the reports.
We'll get data really from the get-go.
Absolutely, that's how you want to see it. Provided.
Well, the district, the
Yeah.
district level and board level, I'm just, as a district, when will you be getting data? You're saying.
Right away, right.
Right away. Okay, thank you.
And just to quickly respond to your comment, I absolutely understand the comment about what mental claims are. To me, it was just a separate report in October. Our insurance renewal is coming to the board, so you have absolutely all data about mental health claims and how they compare to other.
Thank you. So we will be seeing this in 2 weeks for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our finance items is the resolution for mass transit exclusion. This is an annual exclusion that we bring to the board, both sides of our community and available transportation. So nothing is really new about this from any previous years, because Mr. Arbogast he's online Zoom and not sure exactly how well he's feeling, so I'm gonna just open up for questions if there are any.
So I have a related question about, we say adequate transportation for the public is available. There's busing and many of the students live close enough that they can walk or bike in. There's a sort of a larger community conversation happening around bike safety, and I'm curious whether the high school is participating in the development of that bike plan. There have been a lot of incidents.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, in two ways. So we aren't officially part of any sort of village committees for that. However, regarding incidents, Fair Oaks and Chicago, yes, conversations with the village on that. The villages that are really they've taken pretty specific steps over the last 2 weeks. I walk there almost every day myself and see those changes. First, number two, as we've had conversations with the village about Project 2, what has come up in those conversations, and then we've had some side conversations about it, is a planned bike friendly area in front of the school. And how that might, and right now they're just conversations, so I won't go too far in the weeds on that, but not at the heart of the conversation, but absolutely around the edges of it.
Yes, it's significant from the safety standpoint, I think, so just to make sure that's perfect.
Thank you.
So this will come for the board in 2 weeks, and our third item is approval of the purchase of Chromebooks.
Yes, and I may need Tony to chime in on this one if there are any questions. But every year, there's a flood of Chromebooks that come in, and this wouldn't necessarily be the timing that we do this purchase, but we've learned that there is a benefit to purchasing this earlier. There's savings in cost, and so we're bringing this to the board in order to take advantage of that. So if there are any questions, you can feel that this is the annual. This is the one-to-one purchase, the one-to-one program.
Saving $54,000, that's good.
Yeah, so we're pushing it forward.
And this comes before the board every year?
Tony might want to speak to
Yeah, I
that.
want to understand that because, they really come to your question, Marianne, about policy, et cetera. So yeah, clearly it's over $25,000.
That's correct. And this has not come to this school board every year. Yeah, it has not. And this is the result, honestly, of a new assistant super business services, just going through our processes and saying, you know what? There's a little gray area here. Let's just make sure we bring this and shine a spotlight on this a little bit. And Tony, I don't know if you are able to add anything to that I might have missed in that explanation, but please feel free if you're willing. I saw you.
Sure. There's really two schools of thought on this. The money is approved by the board each year in the annual budget. So these are budgeted dollars. It's not an additional purchase. It's always been my belief, just for transparency and keeping everybody informed, to bring these larger purchases to the exact letter of policy and have them approved. I really am unable to speak to prior years as much as it's just a preference, so to say, but my belief is that with this purchase, it's good for the board to be informed, and then also to highlight the work that was done by our ed tech team to find a way to produce savings for the district as well. And this would align then with the adoption of the annual budget. So we'd have both the budgeted funds and then the approved purchase at the end of the month.
Thank you.
So these are for the next school year that we're purchasing in advance. So where do we store them? As a lot of expensive equipment.
The storage for the devices is down in the basement. And this would be as the new computers come in, they would take computers that are coming off cycle, and they can either repurpose those computers, or the ones that are have some components that are completely failing, but have others that are in good shape. We have a incredible in-house Lenovo team that does repairs in-house on the student technology side, and that and I'm not sure how much the board is aware of this, but it saves the district Tom, I'm going to use your least favorite word here because I don't know the exact amount, but a significant amount of money because we don't have to send our Chromebooks out to be repaired. If a screen breaks, we're able to part out an old machine and put a new screen in and see the savings in that way. So that's how we continue to use the machines after their purposeful life is done.
Other questions of Grant?
So what is the lifespan of a Chromebook? How many years do you get out of it?
So these Chromebooks, they're designed for 4 years for these kids. So they get them as freshmen and they get to keep them when they're done as seniors.
Okay, and then do we have any other devices that are also part of the one-to-one program, or all the kids just get a Chromebook, they don't get something else?
They just Chromebook.
Okay. And how often do we revisit the question of whether the Chromebook is the right device versus Mac or a PC or something like that?
That is a good question. I'd have to go back and find out a better answer than what I can give you at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this will come before us in 2 weeks. And that concludes our finance agenda, leaving us with any future agenda items by board members. Seeing none, I move to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The committee of the whole is adjourned. We'll now move into our special board meeting. And we'll go at it. Yes, let me just change my meeting. Okay. So I called, ready? I called to order the special board meeting of the Oak Park and Rural Forest High School Board of Education at 8:22 p.m. in the boardroom of Oak Park and Rural Forest High School, and ask for roll call.
Mr. Brian Marks.
Here.
Ms. Williams-Lee. Here. Dr. Winston.
Here.
Dr. Orange.
Here.
Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mr. Arkin.
Here.
Ms. Costi.
Here. Our first order of business is public comment. Is there any public
We
comment?
have one,
We have a public comment.
yes, Miss Megan Cahill.
And I will just, if you would please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Oh, sure. They'll be on there.
And any action or request for the board allow us a couple weeks to get back to.
Miss Cahill, could you make sure your mic is on? You should see a green button. If you hit the button at the base, there you go, green light. Rather. Thank you.
I don't tender, oh, that's a lot. Do you need?
Yeah.
You do, okay. I don't tend to read, but in this case, I think it's appropriate because I want to be very specific and mindful of time. My name is Megan Cahill. I'm a school counselor and a college advisor. I've been in the district for 14 years. I'm also a longstanding member of the cell phone committee here in the district. I'm pleased with the progress that committee has made in the district. All the action items have been guided in the research, which of course, as we know, surrounded the harmful effects and correlation of screen time on mental health issues, tractability, engagement, and interpersonal relationships on our teenagers. I noticed on this evening's agenda an item for the district to potentially join the federal climate action lawsuit against Meta, TikTok, Snap,
YouTube and other social media companies, alleging the company's reckless and negligent misconduct caused mental health crisis and negatively impacted students in the school. My purpose in taking your time tonight to comment this evening is not an opinion on the district's decision. I actually feel quite fortunate to work in a school district with this level of concern about students' mental health and the investment that the district has made on interventions and student service professionals. Rather, my purpose is to highlight the potential opportunity for the district to consider on a local level, expanding the impact and influence of social media on faculty, staff, administrators, support students, families, all community stakeholders, and ultimately the culture of the building. Social media has a tendency to speed up the spread of both accurate and inaccurate information quickly and simultaneously to multiple parties. This can yield harmful treatment and in some cases negative and harmful impact to the aforementioned parties. Sometimes it cannot be undone. One potential option would be simply asking all stakeholders the question, is social media impacting my teaching, my treatment of another colleague, a classmate, or the consistency of any procedures? This institution is, of course, founded on academics. We are also charged indirectly or directly with giving students the opportunity to work on their life skills, their coping skills, problem solving skills to become ultimately successful, independent young adults. How the district can help and mitigate the impact of social media and model healthier coping skills, life skills, as well as consistent equity and procedures should teach them stronger decision-making skills, stronger positive problem solving skills as well. So while a national item is being considered, which I think is very important, it also may segue into a conversation on what more we can do on a local level as it relates to social media. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Bingham. That's all those times.
Thank you. Which then brings us to our action items, of which there are 4. Ready?
Yeah.
So, recognize.
All right, so with these 4 items, we aren't going to, we don't have any presentations associated with them. So if you have questions for any of them, we'll be happy to field them, but they're, just want to say that they're here for your
They're here for us to go through. Okay, good. Let's get to it. I move to approve the personnel recommendations, including new hires, assignment changes, transfers, and resignations. Second. And are there any questions? May we have a roll call?
Ms. Winsley,
Yes.
Dr. Liston,
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Bradford.
Yeah.
And Mr. Costa.
Yes. Thank you. The motion passes. And our second action is I move to approve the resolution authorizing social media litigation as discussed in closed session. That's second. All right, second. Are there any discussion comments?
Yeah, I will just note, I did read through the legal complaint and I found it convincing. I agree with all of the parts about the harm that social media is doing and doing to minors, and all of their concerns, I think, are absolutely warranted. I think there are some inaccuracies in the technical aspects that they discussed, and I think that what they're asking for is implausible to the point that anyway. So I'll be abstaining, but that is just one to say. That's why. So.
Other comments?
So I will say, as we discussed last time, I'm also challenged a bit with the validity of this particular litigation, again, similar to has been shared, nothing to do with the impact of social media. I absolutely agree with it, that it is a challenge and harming for our students. I just don't know that I agree, that this is the way to go about it.
Okay, I think that we are ready for a roll call, please.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Same.
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj,
Abstain.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane,
Yes.
and Mr. Costa.
Yes. So the motion passes 5-0 with 2 abstentions. Our third item is the approval of the. I move to approve the revised calendar for the 2023-24 school year as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I just think, for communication here, since there might be people listening in. The change is that election day, primary day, which is March the 4th.
Fourth.
March 19th.
The 4th is where we switched.
Correct. That's Casimir Pulaski. So primary day will be a teacher institute day.
Staff development.
Okay, and it will be swapped out with March the 4th, which was a staff development day.
You got it.
And that aligns with our feeder districts.
It does. It aligns with 10 and 7.
Okay. Okay, thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane,
Yes.
Dr. Maharaj,
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
and Mr. Costa.
Yes, the motion passes 7-0. And our fourth and final order of business is, action is I move to approve the A-134 and A-201 documents and names Gilbane Building Company as the construction manager for Project 2. That's for it. Second. Are there questions or discussion?
I anticipate there might be, so I would like, we have 2 representatives in-house from Gilbane, if they could both come up and if there are questions, just introduce yourselves. And like I said, before we start, that's online.
Good evening again, Jeremy Rowland, Project Executive with Gilbane Building Company. Tom Lewis, I represent Alliant Insurance Services, who is the broker for the construction project.
Right, please.
I just have one question. I'm not sure I could find it in the reading the construction contracts. And that has to do with utilization of minority-owned businesses. And is that, I didn't see it in the contract. I don't know if there is it's there, or how do we ensure that there's equity and inclusion in the project?
Absolutely. It is not in the contract. There were no requirements stated in either the RFP process or the as we went to the contract negotiation process. However, Gilbane as a company, we have a 20% goal on every project for diversity and economic inclusion. Whether that be minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, veteran-owned, you name it. There's 7 categories we track. We use a system called B2G now, where all of our subcontractors, our prime contractors would then go and list out all their suppliers and sub-tier to them, second, third, fourth, you name it. And we track that on a monthly basis. They do report through there. There's verification through that system. In that those suppliers are receiving the payments that are the allocations that were supposed to be or that were designated for them, right? If they said they had $100,000 from XYZ supplier and that was an WBE, we track that to make sure that the spend was actually $100,000. And that goes throughout the project. There is reporting mechanisms we can provide and periodically as you wish through the project, and certainly on bid day or on as we take bids, we can track that and which contractors are diverse.
Thank you.
Just three quick things. Mr. Arbogast, I appreciate you joining us by Zoom, given that you are presently afflicted. So hopefully we let you get your rest soon. I also appreciate the swing you took at an accountability or flow chart. I know that was a request I particularly made. The last thing I would ask for is in the cover memo, the bullet at the bottom of page 1 discusses liquidated damages, but it was just a little bit confusing. The way it's worded is almost sounds a little bit contradictory. So it'd be great to hear just a little verbal synopsis of the liquidated damages element in our agreement.
Okay, and Jeremy, feel free to kind of add in as you see fit here. The big thing with liquidated damages was we discussed how we would potentially be able to measure liquidated damages against milestone points in the contract itself versus substantial completion, which is really when the project is adequately complete at its conclusion. And the issue we run into is finding the ability to have a measurable damage at a milestone event. And then also that because we are bidding the entire project out over the course of one bid day for all 3 years of construction, if a company was to fall behind schedule in year 1, they would still be liable to liquidated damages, but it would be if they are unable to get themselves back on track at the completion of the project. I think a key thing to point out here is that Gilbane is going to be providing us monthly schedule updates, and if there's a risk of falling behind in the schedule, they also have to provide a recovery plan. As we start to do our Gantt charting, once Gilbane is officially named construction manager, the milestone dates will be developed and put into the bidding, and then the liquidated damages would doing it over the course of 3 years, knowing that a company could hit substantial completion but would be on site for 3 years could be very unattractive to bidders. And what we don't want to do is be so tight in our requirements that we do not get enough bidders to be competitive and risk the going over budget on bid day. So it's kind of finding that that fine line in the middle of how do we hold everybody accountable, but then also making sure that this project is attractive enough to bring in a large number of bidders that we can have a competitive bidding day that goes very well for us.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask, is that was an item that was raised last time, and it's still a concern, and let me express it this way. In the example that you just used, Tony, I guess my perspective is the student perspective, which is that we're dealing with a project that is going to have span multiple school years. And I don't know the dynamics, but you know, students will be here and then they'll not and will do work. It's kind of like doing construction on a highway where you close it down for a period of time and open it up. And the way you just replied, Tony, at the end, yes, you get to the end line, but the question is, did we inconvenience or disrupt our academics during that period? And how do we protect ourselves against that? Meaning, if we're starting construction in 2024 and now it's September or a year, 2 years from now, 2025, it's August and kids need to be back in the building. How do we, and not every place, because it's, how do we assure that all the kids are in the building that we had planned on being in the building at that time? So that's the concern.
Sure, I'll speak to that a little bit. I think with project 2, it's predominantly, once we start, it goes all the way through and there is no, similar to summer renovations, capital improvement projects, there's no start, stop, right? Project 2 starts with demolition June of 24, and project 2, the addition, I'll call it, will be done late spring, April, May, and we're still fine tuning that schedule. April, May of 26, I'm going to say, and that the completion of that building, the new addition, then kicks off the last piece of the puzzle, which is the renovation of the west pool, the corridor in front of the existing field house, and one other road. So a small piece of renovation, which we target that for the summer of 26, and then that's complete at the end of July and ready for school, beginning 26-27 school year. That's how we see the schedule right now. In trying to put down or put in liquidated damages in multiple phases, there is an enabling piece as well that we're targeting to start in March. That'll go March of 24 to June, July, but there's no clear cut definitive line of enabling has to finish before demolition can start. Part of enabling has to finish, but not all of it, if you will. And then, you know, the turnover of the addition, the pool, the gymnasium have to be occupiable so that you can vacate those other spaces so we can renovate that last space. But without diving into the schedule and doing a full-blown Gantt chart, as Tony mentioned, we've got a rough idea where that's going to land, right? We're really gonna dive into it, and we want to get the district's buy-in on that. And there's a lot of discussion and planning to be done yet. So we don't want to lock ourselves into something at this very early stage. As Tony mentioned, it can be a deterrent for bidders as well if they're subject or potentially subject to liquidated damages at multiple points throughout the project. If they're still interested in bidding it, a lot of times they'll increase their prices, right, to cover that potential risk. So we felt it was best to just lock it in with one at the very end of the culmination of the whole project.
Okay, thank you. That helped, and we've had a variety of different projects, and this is more of a standalone.
Yes.
But nothing is standalone, right? I mean,
No.
It's gonna affect school here for 2 straight years.
Correct.
No doubt. There's no doubt. And significant.
all my other questions I've asked have been adequately answered, so I'm down. So, seeing no other questions, I would ask for a roll call, please.
Mr. Grossman,
Yes.
Dr. Mullenhour,
Yes.
Mr. Arkin,
Yes.
Ms. Williams Lee,
Yes.
Dr. Livingston,
Yes.
Mr. Randall,
Abstain.
and Mr. Costi.
Yes. So the motion passes 6-0. And welcome on board.
Thank you.
Get to work. Get it done on time and under budget.
So here we go. We couldn't be more proud to be a partner with the district and the board, so thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our action items for today. We have a second swing at future agenda items. We like it so much. With that said, I move to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
All right.